Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Strong Inside and Out, the place where you always get that nugget of information to help you be a strong woman on the inside and out. Before we get started with this week's episode, I have to tell you a little something. I've been listening to podcasts for probably the last, I would guess, 3 years. I love them because I can put my earbuds in, take the dog for a walk, go out and mow the grass. I don't necessarily put my earbuds in when I'm running. I'm a sweater, so I just don't like all that on my little fancy earbuds. Call me old fashioned. But I also listen in the car as I'm driving. I'm a hard rock kind of girl, and I was always a Sirius XM subscriber. But most recently, I let that subscription go because I have found myself listening to these podcasts even more than listening to Sirius XM. And I thought, why am I paying for this? I can download my music onto my phone and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, podcasts have become a big part of my world. And I have been watching for new ones always, right? I have my favorites, right? And then every once in a while, I'll bring somebody new into my playlist. And then I'm like, maybe that's really not what I want. But most recently, I've been finding that a lot of the new podcasts have been geared toward women, or the ones for women, geared toward women who are younger. And, I don't have a problem with listening to someone talk about life in their 30s and life in their 40s. But y'all, I'm going to be very, very honest. I'm not 30 and I'm not 40 anymore. And life in your 50s is completely different. And it's completely different in so many aspects of your life. And I know that there are podcasts out there, but some of them just don't draw my attention as well. And so I really want to be sure that I am very clear. All of the information that I talk about on this podcast could really resonate with people, especially specific episodes from all age groups. But as a 53, almost 54-year-old woman, I want to make sure that Strong Inside and Out is speaking to people like me, women who have had a lot of success in life, women who want to achieve a lot of success, women who are high achievers and do not want to just give up now in their 50s, but want to continue to go out there and be amazing because that's exactly who I am. I still have these visions that one day I'm going to be somebody that most of the world knows about. I'm not going to be an actress. I'm not going to be a singer. My God, you do not want to hear me sing. But I want to be known for the work that I do with schools and leadership and the books I write and the podcast and whatever it is that I do. I want it to be the best piece of what I do. So I'm going to be making just a few pivots over the next weeks as I kind of think about how I want to really make this podcast the best it can be for the people that are my actual avatar. So just kind of know that. And again, I always talk about how any of this information can be something for you to think about when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, but most specifically, those of you out there in your 50s, ladies, we are pretty badass. I mean, I don't cuss a lot on this podcast, but I'm just going to say it like it is. We are. And I don't know if we give ourselves enough credit for that, me included. So anyway, that's kind of a little preface for what we're going to talk about today on this week's episode. I had an amazing week this week. I got to be on a panel at my school celebrating Women's History Month. And I was on the panel with a young teacher. So it was great to see the two perspectives. But we were talking about what makes us strong women and why we want to continue to push and grow and do great things. And I work at an all girls middle school. So it's perfect, right? And I got a lot of compliments, a lot of feedback, great feedback on my conversation that I had. And even the girls have taken different approach with the work that I do with them. They regard me a little bit different. So it just made me feel like, wow, when you realize how much impact you actually have, It's amazing. And then not just that, but our principal did a really great thing this week. She had the girls were allowed to invite in an influential woman in their lives to come and have lunch with them this week. And so I got to go into the cafeteria and meet the moms and the aunts and the sisters and the whatever woman, grandmas, all the things with the students that I work specifically with. And that was just, it made my heart happy. Those are feel good things that we tend to get away from, especially when you get out of elementary school, because parent involvement is not quite as big. And so, yeah, it's just been a great week. So having said that, I also listened to a podcast this week, and if you ask me which one it was, I'm not going to be able to remember. But I was listening to it, and then it just so happened that I had a conversation with someone that went in the same direction. And the podcast was talking about how when women who have been highly successful in one area of their life for a significant amount of time decide to pivot and make a change, how it is harder for these high achieving, highly successful women than it is for somebody who is going into this new field for the very first time. This is their first field to go into. Let me clarify that just a little bit because it immediately resonated with me. I started teaching when I was 24, right out of college. My college career extended a bit because, as you know, I had a baby and got married and had to take a year off to work to generate money so that I could pay for college and all the things. And so I was pushed out just a little bit. I had just turned 24 when I got hired for my first position. And I went into the world of education. And yep, my first year was really, really hard, which it should be. A rookie teacher, a rookie anything, you're going to be learning everything. And mine in particular was not just about me learning everything, but me being a mom in the whole midst and my daughter going to a whole new school where she didn't know anybody. And my ex-husband not finding work right away. And we had moved to a huge city as compared to where we were prior and all of the things. But after that first year, I definitely saw myself take those steps every single day to learn and grow. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think I'd have to say it was after my first year. I think I realized about this time of year, I'm recording at the end of March, right after spring break that first year, it was like, I've got to do some things to help myself get better. And that's where I started to see myself start growing. And it was small steps, but I was making those changes to take those small steps so that within the next few years, I was chosen for Teacher of the Year by my peers. I was chosen to work on all of these leadership committees. If you've read my book, you've heard my story. I was actually chosen to leave the classroom and start moving into leadership. My district level support through the bilingual program searched out and found me a program to get my master's so that I did not have to pay for it. I was then put into a principal position young. I was just 34, almost 35. And my district supported me. They sent me off to Lamar for a year, and I worked on started working on my superintendent courses. Lots of great things started to happen because I was taking these steps, right? These measures, and I was working hard. I was putting in the grunt work, so to speak. I was soaking in everything. And I did that career. I did those steps. I continued to improve and grow and improve and grow. I'd been chosen as a state finalist for Principal of the Year here in Texas. I was Principal of the Year for two districts, two different times. Um, I was I was good. I was very successful at what I did. And when I made the pivot, I'm going to be honest with you. And if you're out there listening and you've been through a similar situation as me, no matter what your field is, I made the pivot and I remember saying, I was the big fish and a small pond in the world of education. I know I will be a guppy in the ocean for a while, but in the back of my mind, I really was telling myself, but girl, you got this. You've been so successful. Everybody's going to love you. Everybody's going to want you. Everybody's going to see that success. And they're just going to be like, wow, we cannot wait to work for her or with her. And it wasn't the case for me. Just like it's not always the case for women my age who have been highly successful in one career and making a pivot and moving over to a new career. Now, I'm not saying it's not successful for everyone. I'm not saying that I'm unique. I'm not saying that I am a failure. I'm not saying anything about me or that anybody out there doing it would be on my same trajectory. But what I am saying is for me, myself, and if this resonates with you, I almost duped myself. Well, let's take almost out. I duped myself. I fooled myself. I did not think the transition was going to be as hard as it was. I did not think that even though I knew I had to learn some new skills, that I would have to learn so many new skills. And I'm going to be very, very honest. 1 year into that journey, I had seen some success, but not the success I wanted to see. I gave up. I'm not proud of that. As a matter of fact, I'm very ashamed of it because I'm not a quitter. And that was something that I told people over and over. Go back and look at some of my lives on my social media. I'm like, girl, I'm not a quitter. The only time you ever fail is if you quit. And guess what? I quit on myself. By June of 2024, I was so overwhelmed. Then July 2024, the hurricane hit here in Houston. My clients that I did have stopped paying their bill because they were having to rebuild because of the damage that they had. Then I started to get to a place where I started to feel stressed and overwhelmed, and I couldn't be my best self. And I made the decision to go back into a school. Now, it turns out that that was the best decision that I made because it reminded me of where my true trajectory is, not necessarily staying in a public organization running a school. It's not to say that I can't. It's to say that it made me realize that education is my heart and soul, and everything I do moving forward, although I was fighting that, is going to be centered around supporting education. But boy, oh boy, did I make those 6 months harder than what they needed to be and made them feel some type of way about my worthiness. And I can talk about it now because I'm on the other side of it. But had you asked me about this before, I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I felt like I was judging myself. And so why wouldn't everybody else judge me? And it's so funny because this conversation I had with somebody, they're going through the same thing. And the podcast I listened to, they said the exact same thing. So let's dig into this a little bit. What do we know about high achieving women? Well, we know that we are strong. And we probably got into our positions by being strong, by doing things on our own, by, yes, reaching out and having networks and having mentors, but we searched out those mentors and those networks. We did the work to be able to make those connections. Most high achieving women are not women who they've just been handed everything in life. They've gone through storms. And what they realized was, I need to be better. I need to get out of this. I don't want to be satisfied with the status quo. And in the world of leadership where I live, I don't want to be just good. I want to be great. As high achievers, we also struggle with that whole perfectionism type of thing. Because as high achievers, sometimes things come to us pretty easy. And when they don't, and we struggle, do we know how to take care of the struggle? I don't know. But we also feel like we're supposed to be perfect and we're not supposed to have the struggle. And if we do start to experience hard times, we should be able to figure it out on our own because we built our careers, our lives, our legacies on our own, right? And I know as high achieving women, we are not satisfied until we have accomplished everything that we want, that we are on the top and we're highly competitive. That doesn't mean we don't support other women. That doesn't mean we're going to do bad things to get to the top. I mean, I know some people out there do, but that's not what I'm talking about today. Well, what it means is we push ourselves. We give up sleep. We give up time. We give up luxuries. We give up so many things because the end goal is the most important thing. If you're a high achiever out there, you're probably thinking, wow, how is she in my head right now? This isn't just me knowing this. Of course, I'm describing myself, but research tells us this. The people I surround myself with, you hear it all the time. Surround yourself with the people you want to be. I surround myself with high achieving people. We all do the same thing. So, as high achieving people, we feel like sometimes we're also a little invincible because, in my case, I'm a problem solver. I've solved all my problems up to this point. I found pathways to make all of my goals reality up to this point. And I can do anything. I also know that that first year in, a couple months into it, I said, I feel like I'm the Wonder Woman out there doing the work that I'm doing. And I was proud to say that because Wonder Woman fixes everything, right? And that's how I saw myself. But making a change is hard. People fear change because they know that things have to be different. The surroundings, the circumstances, the environment has to be different. Who you are has to be different. Your habits, many times, have to be different. I pivoted from a structured system. I always knew what my paycheck was going to be. I always knew when it was going to go into my bank account. I always knew that I was going to have benefits. And honestly, I was in a profession, and we learned this with the pandemic, that I always knew live people could never be replaced by online or robots when it comes to teaching children, especially little children. I had a secure environment. Somebody developed the overarching policies, procedures, and systems. I just had to take them and make them work for my building. Somebody prepared the people that would come to work for me. I didn't have to do the legwork of taking you from high school through a teacher preparation program to be able to work for me. Somebody else did that work for me. Yes, I worked very hard and I was very successful, but there were also a lot of supports along the way. And when I made the transition, I realized quickly there were no systems in place. There were no policies. There were no procedures. I didn't know how to go in and make it all work. I didn't know marketing. I didn't know sales. I didn't know what to do when I was failing. I didn't know how to control my stress and overwhelm when you realize you're not making the money you were making before. And that one month you might bring in a windfall of money, and the next month or two, you might not have anything. I didn't realize how much I would have to shell out in order to bring back in. And I didn't even pay for ads in my business. This was just networking events, dinners out, talking with clients, meeting clients and paying for their coffee or their glass of wine or whatever it was, going to conferences, traveling to things. It all adds up. Buying the materials, the equipment you need. I didn't have a microphone. I have a beautiful microphone now that people tend to want to borrow. I don't know. I have a beautiful camera because I had to buy those so that I could have my talk show. I have an office that has all the organizational pieces where I didn't necessarily have that before because my main office was at the school building. I have a schedule that had to look completely different than it did before. Am I done learning? Have I put it all into place? Absolutely not, because now I'm making pivots. And it's almost as if I'm starting over again, but not really, right? And the minute those of us who continually feel success struggle, and we start to make it back on us, we start to judge ourselves, we start to doubt our decisions, then we start to find it very hard to remember our why and to keep going. You heard me talk about the hurricane that happened here in July of 2024, Hurricane Beryl. It was rough. It wasn't like a Harvey, Hurricane Harvey, if you know anything about that. I lived through that here. That was horrendous. Hurricane I tore our house apart. Hurricane Beryl was tough though, because it was fast and it did damage at my house, not major, but some damage. But we lost power for so long. I was out of my home for weeks. And my area of the city, I live on the northeast side of the city, we were without power longer than the rest of the city because of our infrastructure, because of the trees in our area, just the nature of the environment. My clients, most of them at the time, were located in this area of the city as well. Not all, but most. And I felt for them and I understood, but then I started to get to a place where I no longer allowed my human side to be human because I was about the hustle and I was about the bills and I was about the money because I was overwhelmed and I was struggling because I wasn't getting paid. Being a high achiever when things have been easy for so long, not that my job was easy, but the systems were easy. It was maybe easy because it was known. You started as a teacher and you grew and you built and you moved up. This was completely different. I'm here to confess, I was not the best version of me because I didn't know how to handle struggle when I wasn't on a trajectory of being the most successful. So, what if this is you? Here's what I did. The first thing I had to do is I had to assess the situation. I had to come to a point where I said, okay, we have to make a pivot again. And this pivot has to be a positive pivot to get us back to ground zero. Let's do it and still not forget about the dream, not forget about the goal, but find a way to do it in a manner that you can still make the other things happen. I did just that. I knew specifically what kind of job I was looking for, what kind of role I was looking for, and it fell into my lap. And then I sat down and I remembered when my principal called me in on the day that she told me, we're taking you out of the classroom, we're going to get you on a path to become a principal. My daughter was getting ready to start middle school. And she was not only going to middle school, which we know that time of life for children is crazy, but she was going to a district that we had not lived in before. We had built a house. We had done all the things you're not supposed to do all together. We moved, we built a house. I started back at school. We had a transition for our daughter in school, and I had a new job at work. And my ex-husband did as well. It was hard. So I thought back to that hard and I thought, okay, what was it that I did that helped me then start or continue to make those steps forward to success? Because everything I wanted moving forward from there, I attained. So what did I do? And I sat down, y'all, and I wrote it out. I was very, very specific with my reflection. And then I set it to the side. And I pulled it out a week later. And I said, okay, now in this new world, what do I need to do? And that process took me a minute. It brought me into 2025. That was my 2 weeks at Christmas where I went through that process. And as I started 2025 and I started to feel like more change was coming, I've started to put different systems in place for myself. I started talking to my people that are closest with me. And I told them, I'm going to be going through a period where my life needs to transition and I may not have as much time for you. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I'm not here for you, because if you need me, I'm going to be here. But I have to give myself time. I have to give myself opportunity. I have to be selfish for just a little bit, because communication is key when you have to put some boundaries in place. I would love to be able to go hang out with my friends at this local pub we have close by, which is what I used to do on weeknights. But now my weeknights are different. I get up between 4:30 and 5 every morning so that I can either work out, I can get a couple things done with my business, I can get my dog walked, I can do the things I need to do so that I can go to work, so that when I come home from work, I can do the things I need to do to be able to do the work that needs to be done within my business. Somebody asked me out on a date. They had said, let's do a Sunday afternoon, brunch, lunch, all the things. I work on Sundays. I had to say, my fun day is Saturday. These are the Saturdays I'm available. Let's make that happen, but I can't move things around on Sundays because I have to get that work done. And then I have to honor my commitments. I have to say, if I'm waking up at 4:30 to go work out, I'm waking up at 4:30 to go work out. If I say I'm going to juggle things so that I can go to a networking event on Tuesday afternoon or evening, then I'm going to do that. I have to say, if I'm going to record podcasts on a Saturday, then I'm sitting down and I'm actually doing that work. Because I'm just as important as the work I do at the school. I'm just as important as the time I give to my daughter. This dream is just as important. And most importantly, for those of you out there listening, I have to give myself grace. I have to remind myself that I'm doing big things that are shifting my whole life, that everything is changing. I'm becoming a different person. My world is going to become different. And there will be some setbacks. And the setbacks do not mean anything about me as a person, or my worthiness to be loved, or my worthiness to go out and do big things. I have a calling. I have a purpose. I will get there. It might not be tomorrow, and I have to be okay with that. It might be uphill, downhill, uphill, around a curve, underneath, go through a tunnel, and I have to be okay with that. And if I'm not okay with that, it's okay. I move on to something different. And that doesn't mean anything about me as a person either. That work was hard. I still have ways to go, but I can tell you this. I show up to the work different now. I show up with a realistic mindset, not a fixed mindset, not a I'm going to make everything happen in a day mindset. I come into this knowing this is probably going to be hard today. I'm probably going to give up something today, but I'm going to make it happen and it's going to be okay. And for those of you listening, I feel good. There are times where you wake up and you just go, oh my gosh, I'm dreading my life. I'm not having those days any longer. There are days where you go, gosh, should I even make a difference for anything today? I don't have those feelings anymore. And overall, I'm actually excited to live life again because there were some dark days and it was touch and go for a minute. Not that I was going to do anything to hurt myself, but you get what I'm saying. So if you're out there making big things happen, keep going. But let's go at it in a way that makes sense. And it's almost that phrase of let's think smarter, not harder. Because if we keep doing the same thing over and over, that's the definition of insanity. And we know everything's going to change and pivot. We know that we've been successful and we will be successful again. But it might be back to 20 years ago in that learning curve that we sometimes forget about. All right, that's everything I have this week. Hopefully you have an amazing week. If you need support, if you need help with that, reach out. I will be happy to connect with you. As I said, I don't have it all figured out yet because I have learned this. I'm not perfect. And I really have to go back to the phrase progress over perfection because that's a limiting belief that continually pops up for me. But I know that I'm also going to get there. And I know that I'm not a failure because I'm not going to give up on myself. I'm too important. And so are you. Have a great week. And I'll see you all next week right back here on Strong Inside and Out.